What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Zachary, here with my co-host, Matt Owens. Matt, how we doing tonight?
Good man.
Good. Well, welcome to the Athletes Resilience Center podcast. If you're new, thank you for tuning in. This is a podcast where we talk all things mental performance in sports. So subscribe to our page, subscribe to us on Spotify so you can see the newest episodes coming in. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You can watch us go back and forth on there. But this week's episode, we're going to talk about the weight of what labels create for us and for athletes. I think this is really relevant. Matt and I were talking before this about the college football landscape, about how there was this huge buildup, right, for week one of the season. Now we're past week one, right, moving into week two, and a lot of preconceived, I guess, opinions and notions going into week one have already been completely redone and rebuilt and now restructured going into week two, right?
Yep.
I think the biggest one that, we saw was this ideology of Arch Manning before the week being the Heisman favorite and everyone kind of crowning him and deeming him the best quarterback in college football before week one, not having the best week one performance, right? Losing to Ohio State at Ohio State. And now a lot of people have kind of already given up on him. As I was telling Matt, like it's very public knowledge. Everyone's been talking about it, how he was the Heisman odds betting favorite, and now he dropped all the way out of the top 10, and there are new guys cycling in that are above him. And I just think it's crazy just the shift that happened and the level of pressure that was put on, Arch Manning before the season even started, right? Like had limited time playing last year. There was a very small sample size of what we were going to get. Obviously, he has the family history, and from everything that I've seen, he's been a hard worker. He seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and like really, works hard and has respected the system at Texas and kind of stayed there when he wasn't the starting quarterback in order to get better. Has gotten opportunities, has had some success, and then this year so far after the first game, had a little setback. And it's just kind of crazy to see like how many people have already flipped on this kid after one game, right? And like Matt and I were talking about how just the unfair pressure that was put on a kid who had, minimal experience going into the season. I guess I can kick it back to you, Matt, just kind of going back and forth with the conversation about like where people's perception was of Arch before this game and now where it's at after the game. How unfair it kind of has been where, the weight of the world was on his shoulders before this game and he didn't perform, and now everyone's kind of already quit on him and forgot about him, and they're, one game into their season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with college football right now, everything with the transfer portal like booming and everything like that is like this persona of like creating your own team. So it
Yeah.
creates this like microwave society where it's like, okay, like I want my guys to do well right now, right? And it's like that's not how it used to be, especially at this level. Like, Arch Manning, he's starting off the season, he's going against the national defending champions, right? He gets Ryan Day, who just got a ring this past year. He gets a defense that has a lot of good players, a lot of guys that will probably go in the first couple rounds over the next couple years. And then also defensive coordinator for Ohio State, everyone's overlooking is Matt Patricia, right? Like
Yes.
this guy's been one of the best defensive minds in any aspect of football over the last decade, right? So like here's this like, kid, I mean, he's getting like his feet wet finally, and he opens up. It's the big noon game. The college football game days there. Like there's everything going into this, and it's like this is supposed to be like a coming out party, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like that's probably going to be the most difficult game he has
Yeah.
over the course of the whole year,
Right.
right? And like everyone going into it overlooks all of that, and they're just like, this kid has the Manning name. He should be Superman from the jump.
Of course.
And if he doesn't give that, no one thought, I think, going into the game, like, what if he doesn't have a good game? What if he doesn't
Right.
live up to expectations? Everyone was like, okay, we're going to canonize this kid as the number one pick in this year's draft. He's going to be the Heisman and everything like that. He has a bad game, a couple bad passes, everything of that nature, right? Like, things that we've seen from guys that have gone number one before, and everyone's like, nah, can't get it done, won't be able to do it. It's mind blowing. It really is mind blowing. Whether you think he's good or whether you think he's not good, right? It's just mind blowing that like you put all the emphasis into week one of the season, where it's a long season, right? Like he
Yeah.
can clearly get back on the horse. He can clearly ball out. He can clearly do well. He can clearly go back to the drawing board, win the Heisman, win the SEC, win the national championship. But everyone after week one is like, nah.
Right.
We're on to the next guy. Who's
Yeah.
the next one?
Yep. Yeah. No, I think everyone forgets, right? Like he went into the reigning national championships home field
Yes.
against a coaching staff that is very experienced and ready for that moment. Again, we're in this world of the transfer portal, right? Like we just talked about, where you're kind of meshing with new guys, whether that's like new offensive line, new weapons that you have around you, right? Like it's not as easy as just like this is the same team we had last year going up
Mm-hmm.
against this team this year, right? Like you're going into Ohio State playing against the national champion, and everyone is thinking that you're going to go out there and pass for 300 yards and throw 3 touchdowns against what could be the preview for the national championship, right? Like in your first real game of like this is your team, right? Like last year he got a couple starts when Quinn Ewers got hurt, but like this is his first year taking over where it's like this is your team, we're following your lead, like you're the guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
everything out of all the training camps was like, oh, he's showed that he's like the guy and he has all this talent and X, Y, and Z. And it's like it built up to a point where any standard is almost unachievable, right? Like, and even if they go in there into Ohio State and win that game, I still think even if they win the game and he put up a stat line similar to the one that he did put up, everyone still would be hitting the panic button, which is like you went into Ohio State and won the game, right? Like again, at the end of the day, it was a one score game. And like even though you lose that game, like you went in there and that's going to be the toughest matchup you're going to have all season, just about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for that to
100%.
be the first start for your team where you're the leader of the program, like that is not an easy task. And I think that's just on the media and the perception and everyone putting a crown on someone when the season hasn't even started yet, right? And like for all the people out there hitting the panic button, I think Arch is going to be completely fine. It is a long season, like Matt said, right? Like there is lots of weeks for him to keep progressing and get better, right? And like you don't want him to be at his best during week one. You want him to be at his best during the college football playoff. And that's
Right.
not for a long time. And he's going to have weeks in order to get better and better. And he's going to play a lot more competition at a high level that he's going to be able to keep improving and keep getting better from. And I think at this point, right, it's just keeping the blinders on and trusting the process that they have put in place, right? Like I think if you're looking at it, week one in the grand scheme of things might be an anomaly for that Texas team. It's a very talented and skilled team, but we won't know, right, until they continue to play and keep going. And I just think the labels that get put on some people are very, difficult. And it's hard to live up to any of those levels of the expectations when they're so high.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the thing it goes in any realm of like sport, right? Like, if you're a high school team and you're like, man, we want to win a state championship, and you're outside the top 20, top 25, whatever it is now, like, or if you're inside that, like we've talked about on this pod before, like it's better to be, you know, the hunter than the hunted. It's a
Of
lot
course.
easier to be the hunter because you know what you're looking for and you're coming right at that. When you're the hunted, like you're almost playing a little bit more defense than offense, right? And so like I think it's like, you carry the Manning name, like people expect Eli, they expect Peyton, right? Like you play for New York Yankees, like people talk about 27 championships, right? Like there's an expectation, there's a standard, there's a hype that comes around with wearing a certain uniform, carrying a certain name, playing a certain position, being in a certain school, right? And like, all that stuff at the end of the day is just noise. It's just noise because at the end of the day you have to go out and perform. And like, you'll never be able to stop people comparing and constantly trying to put you up against the last guy that wore the jersey or what the standard
Of
is
course.
and everything like that. And like, it's funny. Like I was talking about this earlier today. Like, Michael Irvin talks about wearing number 88 for the Cowboys and like why you
Right.
don't want it in the rafters, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Not getting too far into like his analogy, but like he said that like, if he allows 88 not to be retired and someone wears it, then like when he's long gone, they're going to be like, oh wow, that boy looks like Michael Irvin, right? But it's just like that's wearing 88. Like it's the same concept. Like you're wearing 88, you're playing for the Cowboys. Like Drew Pearson, Des Bryant, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Irvin. Like you're going to be compared, right? And like it comes with putting on that number and everything like that. And so it's just like you can't have people ignore that. It's just about what you do when it's not going your way, right? You're good enough to be a starting quarterback at Texas. You are a Manning, right? So it's in the blood, right? Like you came in preseason number one. You came in as the preseason Heisman like favorite or top three, top five, whatever it may be. The public perception is that you're going to get it done, right? And
Yep.
like
Right.
you can't get it done in week one. You get it done at the end of the year. So it's just like, not that he needs my advice or anything like that, but it's just about, going into the next week, like how you bounce back and just moving on and just being like, okay, like it should be a little bit easier, in my opinion, because like some of the public's going to be off of him and they want to be on to the
Yeah.
next best thing. Like
Right.
the media journalists are going to be searching for like who was best in week one, like who can we
Of
push this
course.
hype behind, like who's this following and everything like that. You can almost kind of go underneath the radar until you're back in their good graces, right? And like that's by having good games.
Yeah. No, I mean, you and I just looked it up before this, right? Like plenty of the Heismans did not start their season off with a bang, right? Like it's what you do in the meat of the season that
Mm-hmm.
matters. And again, I think this is the perfect situation that we've talked about in weeks prior where like if you're focused on just the outcome, right? This could deter a player from reaching their potential, right? If it's like, man, we lost week one, we really shouldn't have done that. If you let that sting for too long and you harp on it, you're not going to be able to bounce back and get any better from that, right? All the focus should be on is the process, right? And I almost think from their lens, it's like Arch can look at this as like a positive. Like, how can you look at this as a positive, right? It's like, well, we went up against arguably the best team in the country, right? And there's a lot that we learned from that experience, right? Like, we went in and maybe there were situations that I wasn't ready for in that moment, right? Like, now I can go into practice. So the next time we play these guys, which probably will be in the college football playoff, I will be ready, right? Like the whole team can kind of build off of that, where it's like, all right, also losing the first game of the season now in this college football landscape doesn't mean as much as it might have maybe 10 years ago, right? Where
Right.
you're a one loss team and all right, now we got to win out or we're not getting in the national championship. Now with the college football playoff, especially incorporating the strength of schedule a little bit more, this loss means less. It hurts, obviously, right? Like, no one wants to lose. I'm sure Arch is hurting from this a little bit, right? Like, it's kind of a little wake up call. Like, okay, this is legitimate college football. Let's go. But at the end of the day, right? Like, it's what you do beyond this, right? It's one loss at the beginning of the season to a top three program in the country. There's still plenty of season to go. You're probably, if you continue to keep playing at a level that everyone knows that the team can, you can make the college football playoff again, like they did last season. So it's just about sticking to the process and understanding, okay, we learned a lot from week one. Now every week we're just going to try to improve, 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 and get better from the mistakes that we made in week one, right? Like
Absolutely.
I just think it's blown so out of proportion just because the media held him on such a pedestal before the season even came that it was like a standard that he didn't even set for himself. You know what I mean? And that's at the end of the day what matters the most. It's what's the level of standard of play that you're trying to strive for? And now week after week you try to hit that and you try to get better in order to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, like you said, like where you go next is pretty much just going to be the most important thing, right? And like obviously, like his teammates saw all the work that he put in over this time, right? And like you can use this in any example. Just because you lose one game, it is not the end of the world. Like you had your margin of error gets a little bit smaller, but like when you look at other sports, basketball, baseball, like where you can afford to lose a certain amount of games because it's just the nature of the beast. You know, you can go back to the drawing board. You can work on some more stuff, but like everyone that's in that locker room, everyone that's on that coaching staff, they know what that specific player put into it. Like they know, like we didn't make a mistake in putting him out there, right? Like sometimes you just don't execute on that day, right? Like I'm a firm believer in like if you are the better team and like you do lose a game, like the other team was better than you that day, right? Like
Right.
today.
Right.
And then how do we get better from today into tomorrow to make sure that like our preparation's better than it was going into the game we lost? How do we make sure that our pregame was better than the game we lost? How do we make sure that our scheme holds up in game to ensure that we don't lose the same way we lost there, and just about tightening the strings as you kind of go along and everything. And that's from a coaching perspective, that's from a playing perspective, an organizational perspective. Like there's a lot of things that you can look at and be like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. Because you lost game one. You did not lose the SEC championship. Like you can still get
Right.
there and your goal is still within sight.
And I think people forget too, last year, Ohio State lost to Michigan in a game that they were supposed to win by double digits. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a bad loss. And what did that lead to? Them playing with their hair on fire the rest of the season and winning the national championship. And I feel like that also gets lost. Like people forget that, right? And I
Yeah.
saw a really good clip on social media where um, this guy was talking about how like if you look at all of the like past Heisman winners and you're going into the game that Arch is about to play, it's like what does success look like for Arch and what does it not look like, right? And like is everyone going to hit the panic button if he doesn't perform the way that everyone thinks he's going to, which happened oddly enough. And he's like, if you look at any of the guys that won the Heisman, Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton, right? Like they all had some games that would be considered duds on their standard, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
weren't games where they were throwing 300 yards, three touchdowns, running for 100 yards and rushing a touchdown or two in, right? Like we looked up the stats beforehand. They had some pretty gaudy stats those years, but like there were some games in there where it's like they didn't play up to the standard that everyone kind of put for them. But at the end of the day, right? Like it's a war of attrition, and if you continue to come week after week after week and put in the work and put up, then like you perform every week, everyone's gonna forget about your week one performance, right? It's just learning, being adaptive, and understanding. Okay, week one didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Now, what can we learn from this, and how can we grow?
Yeah, I think one of the things I do love, I believe, is Steve Springer. He had the concept of every day's opening day, like that type of perception and everything. Just because every game you go into, it's a clean slate. You're not over five. Like the people that struggle the most are the guys that carry last week's miseries or the week before's miseries or somewhere along the lines like the down part of your season into a certain game, and then it's like it just unravels before you, where it's like you can approach every game as a new slate, you can approach every week as a brand new week, right? And like you could continue to tweak whatever you do for that week to ensure it's the best week possible, right? And like at the end of the day, like you said, we looked up some of the stats beforehand. Like you look at Cam Newton, right? And like 2010 Auburn, like I believe it was only one other guy played in an NFL game other than Cam on that offense from that specific team. And like I don't believe any national championship team has had that little amount of NFL players that come from it, right? First three games, Cam he's doing okay to good, right? But no one's checking for Cam Newton. Like here it is, pre-transfer portal. Here you have a Florida Gator that transferred from a winning program. Things happened at Florida. He goes to Auburn. He pops up in 2010, and like they're okay. And it's just like he goes through the first three games, they win them, but it's just like you wouldn't look at his stats and be like, wow, like that's the number one overall pick, right? And then they win that OT game at Clemson. I mean, versus Clemson at home, and then they go off after that. He becomes Super Cam. Everything's great. He's the first overall pick in the NFL draft. Well, it's like the complete flip, right? It's like here you have Arch Manning with all this hype, number one team in the country. Everyone's checking for him. Everyone's checking for them, right? Then you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
Cam Newton going into 2010. No one's looking at Auburn. No one's looking at him. And then all of a sudden they rise all the way to the top, right? Like sometimes like you get knocked down just a little bit and you just pick yourself right back up, right? Or you're the hunter and you just kill off all the prey, right? And like it's what's the difference, right? What people say about you going into that or what you feel about yourself, right? Like once you start looking for that outside opinion, like it's almost over for you because now you're letting like cracks in your armor, you're letting things through. And once you start letting things through, they could be all positive things. If you're letting all the positive stuff through, negatives will come at some point. And if you're willing to accept positives from people, you're probably going to allow some of the negatives to come through. But if you're like, I'm going to be self confident in what I got going on, I know what we have going on, I'm not letting any outside noise, whether that's
Of course.
positive to hype you up or whether that's negative to push you down, come into my camp, like you're going to be a-okay because you're going to be able to ride that straight line from the front of the season to the back end of the season.
Big time. And like you just mentioned kind of with Cam and like a bunch of other of the Heisman winners and athletes, right? Like the best athletes are resilient, right? Like the highest level athletes are the ones that when they face adversity, they're not scared, they're ready to go. Like and being resilient as an athlete, like having the ability to face failure, face pressure and doubt and keep showing up anyway, like making sure that it's not about that you never break. It's about that every time that you are presented with an opportunity, you rebuild stronger, right? And like those moments for those athletes are the ones that kind of elevate them into like their Heisman moments, right? Like none of those guys had easy seasons by any measure, right? Like you have to go through a level of resilience in order to get to where you want to be. And lucky enough for Arch, I almost think it's a good thing. You got that out of the way the first game of the season, right? Like for Texas and Arch, right? Like, okay. And maybe the best thing for him was also taking the weight of being the Heisman favorite off his shoulders after week one. Maybe that's great. Now it's like, all right, now I don't have to focus on all this other excess noise, right? Like all these things in my face talking about how you're the chosen one, you're the Heisman, you guys are the number one team in the country. Now they're not going to be the number one team in the country, probably for the rest of the season, right? Like
Right.
now Ohio State's got, their number, and no matter what, they're going to be ranked above them. And all these other teams that aren't going to have losses are going to be ranked above them. Maybe that's the best thing that could happen for the team, right? Because like you said, now what's the perception and identity shift? They go from being the hunted to being the hunters, right? Now you play the rest of the season thinking we got to win every game and give it our all every single game, right? And like
Right.
that's a huge identity shift that could, will the team to continue to win and get to where they want to be and reach the college football playoff.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the thing. You can't let other people determine your identity, right? It's just what it is. It is what it is, and like whatever you believe it to be, like it has to be positive, obviously, right? Like it has to be positive, or it's got to be neutral. It can't be negative. We all know that, but like
Of course.
at the end of the day, like it's way easier to climb the mountain than it is to go down the mountain, right? And like it's that's the toughest part. And like to your point, I think not seeing the number one next to your name is probably going to be a good thing, especially like you got a new quarterback, you at least have two new receivers, you have a new running back, like that's going to get more carries. It's just there's a lot of newness, and that number one is based on their talent, but it's also a combination of like what that team did last year. And that's why preseason rankings and everything like that, like every coach will tell you all the same. And like, it don't matter. Every school's going to tweet it out. Oh, we're
Of
number one
course.
in the top 25, right? But then at the end of the day, it's like you realize like that doesn't matter. That's based off like the work that happened prior to, and it's never been out of however many Division I teams there are, it's never been number one all the way down to number 100 has been the same throughout the course of the year. You don't start and end with the same exact ranking. It's never happened in
Yep.
history, right? So
Yep.
like wherever they go from here, it's just it's going to be. I won't say easier path because obviously they have to go into like SEC play, and
Of course, yeah, yeah.
that's
And
gonna
that's the walk in the park.
that's no walk in the park. But like at least they know like all right, if they went to Ohio State game and like however they prepared, they're like all right, we'll do more, or we'll do it better, or we'll be more focused with however we go about it. Like there's only good things to happen when you drop the first one. It's never gonna be like time to panic.
Of course. Yeah, and I think, Texas is obviously a program that has established itself as having good culture and, obviously very productive athletes have come from there and good college football teams. But I think you said something really like important, which is again, not hearing the outside noise, like the rankings week to week switch. Like I don't even think ever the rankings from week 1 have carried over into week 2, right? Like
Right.
they're always switching and rotating no matter what. And again, if internally in your building, you're able to have a mindset that is neutral, where each week you're not getting too high and you're not getting too low, where there's always something to improve, right? Like if you can implement that every week, which I'm sure, again, they're a very successful program, they probably do. But if you have that neutral mindset where after week 1 you face adversity, it's like, great, we got that out of the way. Now that, cat's out of the bag, we have a loss, right? Like that's next to our name. Now that's something we don't have to worry about for the rest of the season going undefeated. That's out, right? Like now all we can focus on is the next game in front of us and what we can do to get better for that game. And ultimately, I think this could be a blessing in disguise for that program, right? And again, like they were a program that reached the playoffs last year and preseason being deemed number one. And I'm sure too, like if you want to go on the flip side, right? Ohio State was probably pretty pissed after winning a national championship and not being rated the number one team in the country, right? Like
Yeah.
they're also playing with a little more fire under their ass because of that. So there's a lot of moving parts in a week 1 game that no one wants to talk about because the headline is just going to be Arch didn't live up to expectations, right? And again, like we've said plenty of times in this, the expectations that he didn't put on himself, right?
Correct.
Like he also didn't come out and say, I'm going to win the Heisman this year. Like I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? Like he went in and trained as hard as he could. And everyone came out of training camp and said he looks great. He's going to be the Heisman favorite, X, Y, and Z. But again, he's not the one vocalizing any of that or saying any of that. So it's like unfair perceptions on someone that, we don't even know what his goals or aspirations are for, that specific team week to week. And I'm sure what he would say is, we lost and I need to be better. And I think that is exactly what he said after the game in the press conference. So all he needs to do now is just take a look and say, all right, what can we improve for next week so we can come out with a W? And I think that's what the program's going to do because they're a good program and they're going to be totally fine. And I'm sure we're going to see them probably in the college football playoff. Like, it's just, again, any program, any team, no matter the sport, it's just week to week getting better, taking what you have been given and making the most out of it and making sure next week we don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best parts. Like I know we talked on the show before about like goal setting and everything like that, and like versus expectations, everything like that, and like obviously each individual wants to play at like their highest level possible, right? And like he said, like you said in the news conference, he's talking about the team. Like we did not win, right? And so like how I was taught by my college coach is, pretty much when you're setting your goals, like they have to be within the framework of like the team goals, right? So like if your team wants to win a national championship, what do you have to do to put the team in the best
Right.
position, right? And like from a baseball perspective, that's not having to carry the load, right? Like it's doing like 1/9 of your job, right? And like
Right.
for that,
Right.
that's going to look a lot different in every program from guy to guy, right? Like, if you're first baseman in program A, yeah, you might have to hit 350 with 10 plus home runs, right? If you're first baseman in program B, it might be 280 with a couple doubles, a couple stolen bases, and like really good glove, right? So that's going to look different from like program to program, person to person, right? And so like for him, like I'm sure he has his goals and like however he can be better for the team. Like, granted, we saw one game, right? Like, he
Yes,
might
of
have
course.
performed within a certain framework, but like, we don't know where they're at with calling plays. We don't know where they were
Of
at
course.
on the clock, executing a 2-minute drill. Like, what did the coaching staff want to accomplish with the game plan, right? Like he might have checked his boxes, and then they might have to deviate away from what the original game plan was, just based
Right.
on how the game was going, how much time's left in the game. We don't see that, right, as the outside looking in, but we can place this expectation on this guy that he needs to throw for 400. They might have had the conversations like, hey, we don't need you to even throw for 300 a game. We need 250 a game. Can you give us 250 and, a touchdown a game? And then everyone's going to be like, well, he can't be the Heisman at 250 and one touchdown a
Right.
game because it's not sexy numbers that we want to see on the outside,
Of
right? But like,
course.
are those numbers winning numbers to help your team win the game, right? I think that is the biggest thing that when it comes to expectations, like we all
Yeah.
have to look at, right? Like we might expect something, but we're not on that team. we're,
Right.
we're not that guy. We're not in
Right.
their game meet. Like we're not in their meetings. Like we don't know what the expectation is, but we want this guy to win this trophy, or we're saying he should win this
Of
trophy
course.
because of his name, because of his talent. But like his name is his name. He's not going to change that. But like his talent is his talent. But sometimes we don't need to hit the max peak of
Right.
our own talent. We need to hit our talent within the framework of the team to help the team win the game.
Right. No, I think that was really well said. And you said something too about goal setting, right? Like when you said your goals need to be aligned with like the framework of what the team goals look like. And, I think a big thing that we talked about with goal setting was almost like set it and forget it to a certain extent, where it's like you have your goals, and then, right, let's say you said national championship goals. Then the next thing you look at is, okay, if I have national championship goals, then I need to have national championship processes put in place, right?
Yes.
Like, I think an example of this could have been shown in the LSU versus Clemson game, right? Like, for years, you kind of had the flip side. They haven't won the first game of the season since Joe Burrow. And what do? They go into Clemson and they all wear shirts that just say 1-0, right? Like, that was the emphasis, right? And again, what is step one for their national championship process? Go 1-0. Now, I will be really curious to see what they do in the weeks coming. I kind of hope that they just keep 1-0 on their shirts, and every week the ideology of just win the game, win the game. Because again, week one, it worked. They went into Clemson, really hard place to play, top 10 team in the country, have also, a Heisman contender at quarterback, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country, and they go in and they win. And again, it's that ideology of, okay, 1-0. For us to reach our peak, which again, if you're playing at LSU, they want to win the national championship. Within that framework, what does that mean? All right, each week we have to go 1-0. And that's exactly what they did. I kind of love that ideology. And again, everyone was like, all right, like they're calling their shot 1-0. But I think it goes deeper than that. It's not them saying we're going to go 1-0. It's the ideology of just saying, right, like there's this almost like stereotype now at LSU where it's like they can't win the first game of the season. They're always going to lose it. And it's like, all right, no, like we're throwing that in the trash. This year we're going 1-0. And then every week from there on out, we're going 1-0. And that's basically how you stack wins and get to the point where you need to get to. And I just love that ideology. I kind of hope they just keep the 1-0 shirts and don't change it. But I think that would be cool.
That's awesome. Like they broke their own stigma. They played against themselves.
Exactly. And it's almost like the flip of what we just talked about with Arch, right? Like you have all these things deemed upon you. And now LSU had the other one where it's like, all right, basically mark them down for a loss week one
Yeah.
and then see if they can bounce back from there. It's like, no, like they went in and won. And now that also has changed the perspective of what everyone thought of them, right? And it's like, of course, every year LSU is going to be a contender. But now they just went from, okay, maybe they'll be a contender. We'll see how they do after a week one loss. Now it's like, oh, they're going to be a top 5 team in the country. They're going to compete with anyone. They have, the best quarterback in the country, X, Y, and Z. And it's like all of that switched just by one game on the other side, right? Like Arch went from here down to here, and now LSU went from, the 9 spot. Now they're elevated all the way up, right? It's like, it's just the way it goes, right? And again, through that whole process, you just got to stay neutral because there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And right now, LSU's on a high. Florida State's another one. They're on a high, right? Like now, what do you do in week 2 after you win one of the biggest games, in the last 5 years for your program? Or Texas, what do you do after you lose a really important game in week 1 of your season, right? it's all about how you respond to what happened to you in week one. And that's what the best teams do.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'll make a comment about the Florida State and the LSU game. Yeah, I was watching with my mom, my fiance, and like they're watching it, and I heard throughout the course of, like we're doing other stuff, but like the games were on and the TV and everything, and like my mom made a comment at one point like, "Wow, like this is really intense." Like talking about the
Yeah.
FSU Alabama game, and it's
Yeah.
like, today I was talking to my fiance, and she was like, "What was up with those college football games yesterday?" I'm like, well, what do you mean?" They were like super intense, and I'm like, for both of them, they're like, "Oh, it's just week one." But it's just like it's funny. Like when you look deeper into it, like Florida State, like they were talking, so then they had to
Yeah.
walk
Yep.
the walk, and like
Yes. Yeah.
you're talking up the mountain at like number 8, and you're like, okay, like yeah, you're coming to
Right.
our place, but like we don't think you're number 8. Like we think we're better than you, and then you
Right.
you execute it right, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's crazy. Like my aunt made a comment, like, well, why are they storming the field? Like it's just week one, but it's like it just meant it was so much for
Right.
them, and like their student body, like the whole organization felt it. And then like you look at that LSU game and like see Brian Kelly like chewing out Nussmeier after a drive and everything like that. Like it looked like a championship atmosphere, and it's like, but like for them, it really was like they're trying to
Right.
shake a stigma of being an 0-1 team after week one. Like they're sick, they're tired of it, and they're like, we're playing top 25 teams every single week one, and everyone's looking at us like, oh, they can't do it, they
Yeah.
can't do it,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can't do it. And they're like, we're challenging ourselves. And then finally they were like, buy into it, challenge yourself. Hey, we're going to go 1-0 here. And it was like they didn't care if they were playing Clemson, they didn't care if they were playing New England Patriots, right? Like their whole goal was to go 1-0, beat yourself that game, and go from there. But I thought it was super interesting, like the comments, just hearing about it. Like they know like they know enough about football, but they're not in the know of like all the storylines going
Of
into
course.
it. But like just looking from the outside in, they're like, whoa, like this is crazy. It's August. Like, why are they
Yeah.
taking this so crazy? Like, but it was cool to see and hear those comments and like actually then see how other people look at it, right? When through like different
Big
lenses.
time. No, and I think you made a good point about Florida State too, about how like they were talking going into that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were ready for that. But again, that all goes into the identity of what you want your team to look like, right? Like if that's the team that they're going to be, right? They're going to be talky, they're going to be a little chirpy, they're going to be in your face, like then that's the team that they're going to be, right? Like as long as you are embodying in the identity that you want your team to set out to be and that is authentic to your team, then
Mm-hmm.
sky's the limit, right? Like, and from again, I'm gonna keep going back to Texas because obviously that's like the biggest, headline from the week, right? Like, what their identity will be after week one is going to determine how they go for the rest of the season, right? Like, if they show that they're going to be a resilient squad, then they're going to have a lot of success throughout the rest of the year, right? It's all tied in the identity that you have. And, it's going to be really cool to see how the rest of the season plays out for all these teams and all the different ways that they kind of utilize like their processes and the planning that they put in place. But again, like it's just seeing week to week whose processes sticks the best and which work the best for that program. And ultimately that's what's going to crown the winner at the end of the year, right? It's like how that ends up shaping up at the end of the season. So no, I'm definitely excited to see all of that. But yes, there were a lot of intense week one games. And again, at the end of the day, I think the two takeaways from that is one, your week one game does not define you, but two, it could also be a great springboard for a program to elevate them to get ready and prepare for week two.
Absolutely.
Definitely. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in and joining. Again, subscribe on Spotify and YouTube if you can, if you're watching. And again, we appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you.